Welcome again. In this video we are going to discuss the model fitness indices in confirmatory factor analysis in AMOS. So we are going to discuss the fit indices that are used in confirmatory factor analysis. In our previous video we mentioned that in confirmatory factor analysis CFA we are trying to fit the data to the model. So when you are fitting this data to the model, there are different fit indices that are calculated so that you can be able to tell whether the data fits to the model appropriately. So we start by an introduction where we are saying that there are several fit indices. There are several fit indices used in SEM or used in structural equation model or CFA. And the criteria of satisfactory fit can vary depending on the specific model being tested, the sample size, and the complexity of the model. What we are saying is there are different fit indices, and these fit indices they vary. They vary depending on the specific model being tested. They vary based on the sample size, meaning that they are affected by the sample size, and they are also affected by the complexity of the model being tested. So however, there are some commonly used fit indices that are recommended to be considered when assessing the model fitting structural equation model. So there are several of them, but there are those which are commonly used. So the first one is the chi-squared divided by the degrees of freedom, that is SMIN divided by degrees of freedom. The second one is called root mean square error of approximation, RMSEA. And that one is called the goodness of fit, GFI. The fourth one is called comparative fit index, CFI. The fourth one is called Tucker-Lewis index, TLI. And then the last one is called normed fit index, NFI. So we go on and we look at each one of them. And then we see the required threshold for each of these fit indices. So if we start by the relative chi-square index, that is chi-square divided by the degrees of freedom. So it tells us how much the fit of the data to the model is reduced by dropping one or more paths. So the required threshold is less than or equal to 3. It indicates that an acceptable fit, that is according to these authors. There are also other authors who indicate that if this relative chi index is less or equal to 5, it also indicates a reasonable fit. Then if you look at the GFI, it stands for goodness of fit index, and it is used to calculate the minimum discrepancy function necessary to achieve a perfect fit index, a fit and a maximum likelihood condition. So the required threshold is this: it should be greater or equal to 0.9, which indicates a reasonable or a good fit according to these authors. Then according to Crane 2005, if the fit index is greater or equal to 0.95, then it indicates an excellent fit. But actually the required threshold is this: it should be greater or equal to 0.9. Then we also have another one called TLI. It stands for incremental fit index. So it is used to compare the fit of a hypothesized model to a baseline model. So it assesses the relative fit of the hypothesized model by comparing it with a more restricted baseline model, or typically the NAR model. So the same case here, the required threshold is also 0.9, greater or equal to 0.9, which indicates an acceptable fit. Then we have the third one called the root mean square error of approximation, which assesses the discrepancy between the observed covariance matrix and the model implied covariance matrix, taking into account the model complexity. This one means that this index is affected by the complexity of the model. So the required threshold is less than 0.05, which indicates a good fit, or 0.08, less than 0.08, which indicates an acceptable fit. Then we have another one called NFI. It stands for Normed Fit Index, which compares the fit of a target model to a baseline model, typically the narrow model. So NFI compares the relative improvement of fit of the hypothesized model over the narrow model, considering the complexity, the model complexity, and the sample size. This one means that this model is affected by the complexity of the model, and it is also affected by the sample size. So the required threshold is also greater or equal to 0.9. Then we have another one called CFI. It stands for Comparative Fit Index. It compares the fit of the hypothesized model to a baseline model, typically the narrow model or a more restricted model. So it compares how much better the hypothesized model fits the data compared to the baseline model, adjusting for sample size and model complexity, meaning that it is affected by the sample size and it is also affected by the complexity of the model. And similarly, the required threshold is greater or equal to 0.9. So that is these are the major fit index. I have also included the references which I have consulted in developing this presentation. So we have seen that we have the relative chi-square index. We also have the GFI, the goodness of fit index. Then we also have the TLI, the incremental fit index, and then we have the root mean square error of approximation. Then we have the normed fit index, and then we have the comparative fit index. So these are the common fit indices. So in the next video, I am going to show you how to run the CFA model, and how to check each of these fit indices. So make sure you check the next video. Thank you.